What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. I'm here with the birthday boy. First of all, Sean Bernard. Happy birthday to my boy.
Yeah,
And then we're
appreciate it.
also here with RB, who's joining us for the episode today. There's a lot to talk about. The Sixers are on a skid. They're not looking great. So Sean, first of all, what's up? Thank you for coming on, RB. We appreciate your time, man.
Thanks for bringing me on the show, guys. Sean, happy birthday, man.
Yeah, appreciate
Great
it.
game last night, right? Good birthday present. But yeah, man, happy birthday. Thank you guys for bringing me on. I'm ready to talk, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive into last night. What was your first overall just really ugly game? 88-87 came down to the last possession. I don't know why I ever had faith that they would draw up a play that would work in the final seconds of a game. I don't know why that ever even crossed my mind, but I had hope up until the end, but it ended pretty poorly and just bad all around. So what did you see, RB, from just like your general reaction?
Yeah. Like you said, it was a very gritty game, low scoring. I can't even remember the last time both teams didn't even score 90 in a game. It was just ugly. And of course, in Sixers fashion, it comes down to the last play of the game. We don't get a shot up. Overall, it was just awful. It's kind of a trend we've been on lately. There's a lot of overreaction, in my opinion, but there are some issues that we definitely need to address. We just can't play like that again. We cannot play
Yeah.
like that again. Nobody stepped up. I thought honestly everybody played bad. Everybody on the team. And we lost to a team with Al Horford and Josh Richardson in 2021. Team that honestly had no business they tried to hand us the game
Yeah.
and we couldn't even take it, man. It was tough.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a stretch where we've seen a lot of bad Sixers basketball, and we've somehow just found ourselves still in the game in so many of these, and they haven't been able to capitalize. And that really hurts just thinking about how bad they've played and just still having opportunities and not being able to capitalize on it. Last night in general, absolutely terrible game. I mean, it's brutal when we think Tobias, Maxey, and Embiid, 10 of 41 combined from the field. Embiid alone was 3 of 17. Some really bad performance, stuff that you just don't want to see. If it wasn't for Shake Milton, I will say best Shake Milton game of the season. So that is like the one positive in my mind. If it wasn't for Shake, like I don't even know if we cracked 70 in that game. And that little burst in the first quarter really did the team a ton of good in getting us off. And that last play as a whole was a complete disaster. So very frustrating game. It always hurts losing to the Celtics, and last night wasn't any easier.
Yeah, it always hurts losing to the Celtics, and it feels like it happens more often than not, which is the worst part about it. And like you said, RB, I think there are like a decent amount of overreactions to this, but a lot of it I feel like is warranted. There's a lot of concern in my part about just the way that this team plays. They're super slow. They don't get easy buckets. Sean and I were just talking about it. Like, when was the last time you saw Embiid get a layup? Like, never. It doesn't happen. He doesn't ever dunk the ball or lay the ball in. All the teams are doing are doubling him right away, never giving him an easy chance. So if there's one thing you can point to that really concerns you about this last stretch, aside from obviously the injuries and COVID, is there one thing that sticks out in your mind that's really concerning for the rest of the season?
Yeah, there's a lot. But the main thing is just how we are using the guys that we have. And I feel like it's leading to kind of an overreaction where, we need to go sell the entire team. No, we don't. I think we have a pretty good team in place. People forgot we started the season 8-2. We had a terrible outbreak. Like Joel said, every time we get on a roll, something has to happen. But I'm not seeing the way that these guys can play being utilized to the most optimal advantage for the Sixers. For example, you talk about Embiid. When's the last time you saw Joel catch it under the basket? This is a guy
Yeah.
who was essentially, in my eyes, an MVP last year. And he came out and said that he wanted to shoot more threes this year. And now he's settling for a lot of jump shots. Now, he's probably not 100%. I don't even think he looks like I was at the game the other night. He was, hands on his knees. He didn't even look like he was in shape. Then you got Tobias Harris taking a lot of touches. Meanwhile, when these guys were out, Tyrese Maxey was having his way. He was flying around the court. The ball was moving. These guys looked like they were on some type of rhythm there. However, I'm not seeing the chemistry on this team. That's the most concerning thing. I'm not seeing, these guys really trusting in each other. And I think that has to change. And I hope it does.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And I mean, to start with just personnel choice in general, let's look at that last play real quick. So first off, Tobias Harris is the guy getting the ball. He first off missed Embiid under the basket, which we had the look we wanted, which was Embiid in the post with Jaylen Brown on him, which is an absolutely, if you get that in your last shot, you live with that. Beyond that, he then retreat dribbled toward half court Al Horford was all over him. Al Horford was clamping up Tobias Harris. He's saying, with 6 seconds, you cannot get by me. And then Toby misses Danny Green, who was open on the corner, and then throws it to Niang as time expires. Like an absolute disaster there. And my biggest problem with this whole thing is Tyrese Maxey is sitting on the bench watching this all happen. The guy who is the best ball handler on this team, the only guy on this team who has any sort of burst, any sort of pace, and the guy that really we should be in the transition of handing the entire keys to this offense to, is just sitting there watching with the rest of us for what happens there. And I mean, Tobias Harris, I have plenty to say about him too, but like just using his skill set, that is not it. Like he's not the guy you want creating off the dribble pretty much ever. And it just blows my mind. Like in a 1-point game, like that's kind of what it comes down to. And I'm incredibly frustrated with just like, it feels like there's been a whole lot of like, it's almost one step forward, 2 steps back with this team and how we've been lately. And just like the transition to Maxey felt like it was getting there, and it felt like we were making such progress with that. And then since Joel's return, there's been no clicking between them. Doc doesn't seem to how to be able to use those two together. And I mean, having your best ball handler and really the biggest impact player that we've seen all year not on the court with 6 seconds to go in a 1-point game is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, I don't get it, man. I've had a lot of issues with Doc Rivers, and I recently gave him credit over this stretch, like the COVID stretch and everything of, raising the floor of these guys, making sure they're ready to play and compete. And he did that well. But then it comes down to it, and Minnesota, terrible late game situations. You draw up a terrible play, you get a terrible shot to end that game. You really struggle entirely to score like altogether against a terrible Magic team that has 4 wins. And then you go out and you play the Celtics, you put up 87. And the Celtics have been playing good defense. Don't get me wrong. They're a good defensive team. They've held their last like 8 opponents to under 100. But 87 points in an NBA basketball game, like you said, Shake Milton doesn't have 12 in the first quarter. They're looking at an 8 to 10 point quarter as a team. That's awful. And then I guess we can start with Tobias, because there's drawing genuine concern from me that he just, even at his best, I'm worried is just not capable of being the player that we need him to be. Playoff time late. We saw him last year struggle in the playoffs. Really, I was expecting a lot more coming into this year. And again, he's been hurt. He was out a little bit. They're still trying to get into a rhythm. So I'm giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But man, he's looked terrible. And decision-making in terms of passing, but also shot selection. Passing up open threes to take contested mid-range fallaways that always come up short. Not being able to get past his defenders. Like, he is slow. I don't get it. But RB, just for Tobias in general, we've seen him struggle. Is this something that you are looking at as like Tobias can't be the player we need him to be, or is he just struggling right now?
I think it's a little bit of both. Now, I want to take a step back to both your points about Doc Rivers. The funniest thing about last night about not having Tyrese Maxey in the game was the fact that he said he wanted shooting on the floor. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tyrese Maxey shooting upwards of 37, 38% from 3. He's the one guy you can give it to that can actually get to the basket, that can beat Al Horford off the dribble, okay? But the reason I wanted to go to Doc is because I think it ties into Tobias, right? Doc Rivers, the thing he did last year, despite the criticism late in the season, in my opinion, Doc did a lot of good things last year for the team. He came in, he got Tobias going, not thinking too much with the ball. He got Joel sitting down low. I don't see any of that now, and I don't see Doc correcting it. As it relates to Tobias, I'm concerned in the fact that he's shooting 32% from 3-point range. The guy can't hit a shot. He's holding on to the ball way too long. He's not doing any of the things that normally make him a solid third option. And the reason I say third option, and this is where I'm talking about the overreaction. See, I don't believe Tobias can be anything more than 20 to 22 points a game. That's what I've always expected from him. So that's why I'm not really too disappointed in Tobias. Like, I get it. He's not playing up to standards. But I think people, due to the lack of a second star, due to the lack of getting another piece, are expecting so much from Tobias, when in reality, I think we kind of have to come to a realization, but I would love to hear your take on it. Like, Tobias is overpaid. We know that.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the second guy on the team. I thought Maxey was starting to develop into that, and I'm thinking if we go get another piece, that maybe Tobias can be a solid third option, solid fourth option. But I just think Doc's not doing anything about it. He's letting Tobias pretty much heavily rely on this offense to just feed him, as well as Joel Embiid. And it just doesn't look balanced to me. And I think we're missing a piece, and we're relying on Tobias Harris to kind of step up and fill that role, which he can't do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, he's bit off more than he can chew with just like how much is being thrown at him. And I mean, I would even go as far to say that I've been a little bit of a Tobias defender at times. When we think about last year, I think he was exactly what the team needed, and frankly, I think covered up for a lot of the deficiencies that Simmons shows last year. And when I think about this year specifically, my biggest cause of frustration, to which I didn't see last year, is just how slow he is with the ball. And it feels like he hasn't made a quick read or a quick decision like pretty much all year. Like it's never the catch and shoot that. It's always like the catch, pump fake, dribble, contested. Dude, like it's never like never feels like he knows what he's doing or going with the ball. And the offense as a whole has been so slow. And I think Tobias in a lot of ways kind of this shows out on him. We're operating like at the end of the shot clock on just about every possession because it feels like that's by the time we get settled and actually do anything. Like I've been so incredibly frustrated with just how long it takes to actually get into any sets. And I don't know what category to put him in. Like at his best, he's a fringe all-star kind of player. 20 to 22 points a game sounds great to me. And like that should be like what the team needs. But he's such like a quiet production guy. Like more so than ever, he's a guy who can score 20 points and have very little impact on the game as far as like you don't even notice that it happens. They're just quietly there. And there's certainly a need for that. And like I think this team, we've bitten around the bullet that we've been missing a piece. It's been no secret since all this year but what we should be building towards is, like you said, RB, like adding another piece, and Tobias is a legitimate third. That's what I'm starting to question, is just like what this guy, how he fits in. Like he's not a cohesive part of kind of a unit. And I don't think there's any team out there that looks at Tobias Harris and says like, that's a guy that makes my team so much better. Like he reminds me a little bit of, I was a very anti-Carmelo guy at the end of his career. I'm happy for him kind of rejuvenating and finding a new lane now. But my frustrations were like, is constantly the over dribbling, the over playing. And I'm seeing so much that in Tobias. And when you're not producing at like an elite level, you simply can't get away with that. And I don't really know what the fix is to go with him. It definitely has to start with making quicker decisions and at least getting some at least like know what you're doing with the ball. But it's been super frustrating how he's looked so far.
I think the biggest frustration with the Tobias is that you do rely on him for like he's the only one that really gets like self-made shots, right? Like he's the only one that's on this team that like you're looking at. Maybe Seth Curry does it as well from the perimeter, but not at a high volume most of the time. Like we're seeing 17 points last night, good game, but 17 points isn't gonna pay the bills. You got to get more than that, and you don't have another perimeter scorer. You don't have another self creator on the perimeter, and Tobias differs from that area of the floor so often. And I think the last time, honestly, I can think of the last time I was like, oh, Tobias is getting it going was against the Magic. He hit a three, got a pump fake on Mo Bamba and a dunk, and then we didn't see it again. And we haven't seen it since. And there's so much of him just ending up backing down a player that's similar size and throwing up a fadeaway shot. And teams are doubling Joel, which means the paint's clogged, which means he's not getting into that space a lot, which he does normally efficiently score in that area, but he's not getting those opportunities. Joel's not getting those opportunities either. And one thing with Tobias is like he came over from Los Angeles and he had a great year there under Doc. And everyone was like, okay, we need to get him back to that Tobias. He struggled so much with that Al Horford team. And then last year he got back into that form of making quick decisions, getting to the basket, scoring in his spots. And how does it go back from seeing such a productive, good year from him last year to just reverting right back to all the things that made him a struggling player the year before? And I think all the complaints about Tobias this year are recycled from the 2019-2020 season. And that sucks to even think about. Like he is in what now, the third year of that contract, second year? Whatever it is, third year of that contract. Like at this point, we should be thinking we should be seeing peak Tobias. And it's almost like he's kind of gone back downhill. So I don't know. I said last night in my rage that I was out on Tobias. Maybe I'm exaggerating or overreacting a bit. I can I can take responsibility for that, but I don't know, man. It's not looking good.
The thing is, James, like what is our out on Tobias? Like we're kind of stuck with
Nothing.
this guy when
I'm just here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just here saying it. It doesn't actually mean anything. But I don't know. How do you feel, RB?
See, here's the thing. Like you're exactly right in your estimation. Like a lot of us are pissed off at Tobias Harris, but I agree with Sean more in that there's a lot of reactionary takes going on But in reality, what are we going to get back for Tobias Harris?
No,
And
nothing.
and if you trade Tobias, here's my thing, right? If you as an organization have sat through this entire debacle with you know who, and then you trade Tobias Harris for role players, or you trade him for like, I don't know, someone of maybe equal or lesser value. What does that say to Joel Embiid? You are literally
Yeah.
conceding the season. We have to hope and pray as Sixers fans, in my opinion, that one, Tyrese Maxey finds it again with these guys, and two, that Tobias can just give us 20, 18, 20 a game and that we can trade for another piece. I don't see any way out of this. And it's mainly Elton Brand's fault for signing these contracts. Tobias is never going to live up to that contract. It took me a while, but I've come to realize like he's just not that dude. He can't
Yeah.
give us 28 when we need it. He can't go and beat Al Horford on a drive to win a game. It's just not going to happen. And I mean, last night he just lost his mind. I don't know how he didn't even pass the ball or look at the basket, but
Yeah.
this could, I like your point about James about the takes being recycled from 2019 because I feel the same way with Joel. Everybody was criticizing him for not getting down under the basket, criticizing him for shooting the ball too much, for just relying on his jump shot. It's like Joel and Tobias, I feel like we're falling into that same hole. Why aren't we doing the things that we did last year to make us a successful team? Just
Mhm.
because of one guy goes out, it doesn't mean we have to completely change everything. I don't understand it. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I also think there's just a fundamental issue with the roster construction of this team when we think about how reliant we are on mid-range buckets. And in the three-point era that we live in, like think about our entire roster. We'll even throw Simmons in here. Simmons, Embiid, and Tobias are all primarily mid-range and in scorers. And we think about Seth Curry. Curry, obviously an excellent three-point shooter, but he pretty much lives in the mid-range because he has to in order to get separation. Like when he comes off screens, he has to take that extra burst inside or he's getting his stuff blocked. And that like leaning that heavily on two-pointers for guys in the like day and age that we lived in is just like it just mathematically like it's not going to work out that way. And specifically talking about like the Tobias and Embiid relationship, like there's been way too much like double post ups and those guys clogging themselves out in the same way that we were so thrilled that all this was going to be gone when number 2-5 wasn't in the building. Like it's absolutely still happening. And you totally see those guys. And it even goes back before that. Like there were fourth quarter possessions where Maxey was in the dunker spot. There was we're still putting Thibault out there for massive chunks of the game. And they're just fully doubling down on Embiid for the full possession. Like Matisse, I love Matisse as a defender. This guy is like elementary as a basketball player on the offensive end. Like every time he shoots it, he looks like he's scared he's putting up. And it's just like, I don't understand. This guy is now like, you're not a young player anymore. We're not to the point where we're hoping for development. You are a 4-year college guy. You've been in the league 3 years now. It's like, there should be signs of growth that like you're at least improving in this. And I get, we'll see the occasional like flash to the lane. He's a good cutter. He can do things. He can dunk, but it's like, if you want to be a real piece of this team, that development needs to be here. And there were huge chunks of that game last night where it's just like he was a detriment just being on the court. So I have frustrations with Matisse as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of frustration to go around. There are like 3 or 4 screenshots going around of like sets from this game that
Yeah.
make me like actually sick in the stomach. Like, I mean, obviously the last play with Embiid standing in the middle of the paint with a one-on-one against a 6'6" defender with 5.5 seconds left. The one where Maxey's standing in the paint with Embiid on the block and Tobias on the other like short wing, also inside the 3-point line. And like, what are we doing? What is actually happening with this team? And like again, it's hard to like actually grasp the basketball aspect of it in terms of like what sets they're running. It would take a while to really get like into the nitty gritty of that. But there's so often where this team looks confused and like in sets that just do not work really with any personnel. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
playing basketball in 2007 again. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's not the mid-range. It's not like Kobe and Tracy McGrady anymore. Like you got to modernize this offense. Right now they're 24th in the league in offensive rating. And they're like slightly above average defensively, but that's just because of Joel Embiid. Like
And
if you don't have Joel,
think about they were first through 10 games in the season
yeah,
and how quickly that changes.
it's
Yeah.
so bad. And it's so frustrating to see them like they're very vanilla offensively. They're bland. They don't have anything like I said to Sean on Tuesday when we recorded, there's no creativity in this team at all. And like Doc has always been like, oh, he has an offensive coordinator. Like he calls who Dave or Jaeger, who is out right now. He's not around. But beside the point, like he has people that run that for him. At some point, you got to take responsibility. He's one of those guys that just always seems to deflect. But just offensively, like what is there to change here? There's so much that they lack. What's the first step in changing it?
Well, the first step in changing is what you just said, accountability. I turned on the post-game presser last night, and the first thing I hear Doc Rivers say is, well, it's hard to score with 6 seconds on the clock. Now, what does that send in terms of a message to your basketball team? Okay, 6 seconds, I could do anything I want in 6 seconds.
Yeah.
You can definitely blow by Al Horford and try to get a bucket or throw it into a superstar center. But anyway, we got to take accountability. Doc has not been anywhere near perfect either. These rotations, we didn't even mention Joel came back in the game with 5:45.
Yeah.
You're telling me he sat out the entire fourth quarter. I think we put in entire bench units and watch leads evaporate. And to go off what Sean was saying, we don't have enough basketball talent. That's how we need to improve our offense. Okay. The bench started off hot. They were on fire. And I knew it. I did not cross the line. I did not want to get too invested because I knew there are too many inconsistent players on the bench. Furkan Korkmaz, what has happened to him? Niang isn't playing as well. He's doing okay, holding his own, but still not as what he was. Shake Milton. I mean, what is up with these dudes? Like Thibault. I mean, we don't have like basketball players. We don't have athletic guys that can really create. And I've been saying it all offseason. We need a bench scorer that can really give us 15 a night every night. But yeah, Isaiah Joe's sitting cold on the bench, doesn't get any run, comes in, gives us 10 points, doesn't get any run. That's honestly, we need to find out what lineups are going to be right. We need to mix things up. And then in addition to that, like I said, we need to get Joel down where he's comfortable. We need to get Tobias to stop shooting it after 14 seconds go off the shot clock. And really, we need to hand the keys to Tyrese Maxey because what I saw in that 7-game stretch, this dude was getting compared to some of the greats. And now he just kind of evaporates. And I know he's struggling a little bit, but I just don't see the aggression from him. And I don't see the energy level from anybody. They got to get moving again. They're way too stagnant. And I'm tired of seeing guys just sit in the corner. And one last thing, Seth Curry, I feel like every time the guy gets hot, we go away from him. Why do we do that? Why do we get away from hot players on the offense? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about this year as a whole, like obviously, even going into this season, it felt like there was so little talk about actual basketball. Was all the off-field, off-court drama, all the Simmons stuff, the holdout, everything. Like we kind of knew going in, this team as is currently constructed is by no means a contender. And we're so far off until that final piece is settled. So first off, it's a scary thought that there won't be a trade past the deadline, that there isn't help on the way. Because if that doesn't happen, this year is simply a wash. Like there's no competing if there's not a trade with 2-5 sending out of here. Beyond that, if we're not looking at it like that, the saving grace for this team is just how good Tyrese Maxey can be, and consistently handing him the keys and giving him bigger chunks and just seeing how good this kid is and what he can do should be the biggest thing. Like, what do we have to lose right now by just like seeing what this guy is? And I was super in favor of turning toward that fourth quarter, him and Embiid rather than the Tobias and Embiid. And I still think that should be the case. Like, there's no harm if you give the ball to Maxey in that play and he doesn't get here. We're sitting in the exact same spot this right now. And frankly, I would feel a whole lot better about it if we go down swinging with Tyrese Maxey doing something. And I guarantee he's dusting Al Horford a little bit easier than Tobias Harris made it look. So I'm incredibly frustrated with just how we're not building towards those steps and taking those strides as an organization, because that is the future. And that's really the only like saving grace for what this team has to hold on to. So it doesn't make any sense to me not to feed into that.
Yeah, I think I ended up in a pretty dark place after last night. I was really contemplating like the way this team looks right now. And I'm like, I'm really struggling with the fact that like, I don't know how much of a contender they actually are. And
they're not.
Obviously, again, they're missing $30+ million of a contract on the floor every single night. And it's hard to, make an excuse for that. It's the reality of the situation, unfortunately. You don't know how it's going to be resolved. So there's this big question mark and a cloud that's been hanging over the season since the start, even before it started. But maybe it was a little bit underestimated how much of a gap it was going to leave. I think that people might have been kind of over Ben, understandably. But really, like, again, he was your point guard. He is a facilitator. You're lacking that in the offense right now. So I guess to kind of shift away from last night, because I know that there's like a really fresh wound. But when you look at this team and now the emergence of Tyrese Maxey and what he's been able to do, are you looking at specifically a point guard for like a trade option? Or are you seeing best player available, any type of perimeter scorer as a replacement for what Simmons was in this offense? Or are you looking for a point guard still?
For me, I don't think there's a lot of options at this point. I don't think there's going to be. So we really need to evaluate the playing field here. I still think they're in kind of like a stingy war here, and I don't think either side wants to bite. Um, as it relates to 2-5, like I don't miss this guy whatsoever, even with the way we're playing, because Tyrese Maxey, even if he's struggling, he's going to the rim the next possession. Like he's
Yeah.
a dog, he wants it. And the amount of people today with these reactionary takes talking about, oh, he was the reason we were successful last year, that's complete bogus. We played completely different. We also just came back again from two of our guys having COVID really bad. And overall, we just need to get better as a team. It's going to take some time. There's growing pains, but for example, I threw out D'Lo as a name the other night, got completely thrown into the fire for it because Tyrese was playing oh so well. But I feel like as Sixers fans, we develop these emotional connections because we are such passionate fans. And I'm slowly trying to draw myself away from that. I'm trying to look at everybody, hold everybody accountable. And you know what? I don't care. If D'Lo is on the table, I'm taking D'Lo any which way. Okay. We need to get better as a team. And like you guys said, if we wait and we wait and we get down to the trade deadline, we're biting our nails. And it's like last year, and we're like, are we actually going to make a move? And we don't make a move. You can say goodbye to this season. You are conceding it. You're kissing it away. We need to go out there and get a playmaker on this team. I honestly almost don't even care if it's a point guard at this time. I think we just need to get a dude who can finish games, who can really take pressure off Joel Embiid, because I'm getting sick and tired of it, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your a point about I guess showing some personal favor toward guys too. And I mean, and to tie back to your bench point, like it's difficult with guys that you just have no idea what you're getting from on a nightly basis. And when you think about all these guys, like Matisse is a guy that keeps jumping to my mind of guys that Sixers fans have like protected at all costs. And with this, and it's like dude, I would throw Matisse on pretty much any one of these deals to make it happen. And it's just like we can't. It's tough, the situation we're at. Like it's been no doubt this is so difficult to handle throughout, and a lot of this is just waiting out for that like quote unquote difference maker to make himself available. And like, to be fair to Morey, there hasn't been a lot of just options he has to shoot for, so it's not like he's out there missing on guys. There simply aren't like targets he has to shoot for. And like, do I think that's going to change before the deadline? Frankly, not really. Like, I don't see a lot of guys kind of on the cusp of something happening, and that definitely could change. But I'm definitely getting to the point where, like, let's take our lumps and, like, see what we can get this year. And I do think there's enough of, like, pieces on this team that you can throw together, like, a deal down the line if it needs to happen. Like, I don't think this is, as much as Simmons is for sure, like, our best, like, trade piece, I don't think that's all it is. Like, we can absolutely flip Simmons. And I've been this way through the beginning. I don't have an issue with the Simmons for a bunch of first-round picks. This is a make him somebody else's problem, build up more assets, and you're still sitting back playing the same waiting game without the headache in the back. So I have no problem with that if that deal's on the table. And that's another thing that people have not been happy with that. But I definitely feel that way, that I would be cool with punting it down the line and collecting assets for the future.
The CJ McCollum or dude, the one that hurts kind of a little bit is the DeJounte Murray. He's been balling out, and he's one of those guys too that I really he's a dog, and he's like that too. So it's
Malcolm
been
Brogdon
difficult.
too.
Yeah, bro. I'm not huge on Brogdon, but like he would be good for this team
Excellent
right
here.
now. You need someone with pace, like you said. Like I think right now you should be kind of trying to look to see if you can find a backcourt partner for Maxey. Like you guys said, he's probably the future here for the backcourt. So finding a guy that complements him and a guy like DeJounte Murray, maybe even CJ McCollum, a scoring lengthier guy might be the better option. It's hard to tell at this point. But again, I think with Maxey and the way he's been able to prove that he can play point guard, score at a high level, and then also what we saw over this longer break from Embiid was the fact that he can facilitate and he can protect the ball. So those were encouraging signs for me in terms of his like progression as an actual point guard. So like looking at it, I think that where I fall is just best player available. Whatever you can get your hands on at this point. It doesn't necessarily have to be a point. Like obviously, if you get a chance to get one of those top tier guards, which it doesn't seem like any of those guys are available, you'd have to do that if you had the chance. But like if it is a McCollum, we saw Jaylen Brown. I'm assuming that's probably never gonna happen.
I wish.
But oh
Yeah.
yeah, man, he's very, very good, and it's
Yeah.
a struggle to watch him. And like Tatum again had a great night last night, but I don't know, man. It's really difficult to see the way that this is played out. But they have a really tough December too. So right now, what do they have? They have who do they play tomorrow?
The Hawks and then back to back against the Hornets.
So tough game tomorrow, and then back-to-back games against good. Like the Hornets took the Bucks to the Fritz last night, right there towards the end.
Hornets are
And
not
they're
a
a
bad
good
team.
team.
Yeah.
They're a
Yeah.
good team, and they're surprising, and they play fast, which is the opposite of what the Sixers are. So we've seen the Sixers struggle with those type of teams. This is a stretch where I think it's not make or break because it's still very early in the season, but just in terms of like chemistry, momentum, and like morale as a whole, I think this is a pretty important like 3 to 5 game stretch. So what do you see them doing through these next 3? Do you see a couple wins mixed in there, or are you pretty worried about the next couple?
I'm definitely worried at this point. And by the way, Jaylen Brown, I that's a pipe dream right now. I would
Yeah.
love Jaylen Brown on this team. I'm sure Maury's inquired about him. But man, we need to make something happen for sure. But the next couple games, I'm just not going to be confident until I see the corrections made. And I'm just not seeing them made. What I think needs to happen is a spark somehow, some way. Maybe you start Isaiah Joe for the heck of it. Maybe you start, I don't know, Quirk Mod. Like you got to switch something up. There's no energy on the floor. You got to go out and win at least 3 of the next 5. I think we got Utah coming up as well. Tough teams, tough games. This is going to show who we are as a basketball team. Because, like I said, we're already out for the count. You know, they're done with us. We had a nice start and we hit a tough break, and now we're just nobody. So I actually like it better that way. Play as the underdog, come out and win games. That's what you have to do. Even if they're ugly, you just got to do it and get through. What we need to do, in my opinion, is go on a hot run near the trade deadline. Daryl Morey needs to wake up and realize, okay, we're on a hot stretch. Let me make the final piece here and try to make a run. Otherwise, we might go with Sean's tactic and just collect a bunch of picks and have to, kick the can and be done with it for this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks, and I keep bringing it back to it. Like we started the season 10-2, and we're now 11-11. Like that's a brutal swing with that when we think about like how quickly the tides turn, and it's not just the losses to me, but like the way we have lost that's been so frustrating. And when we think about how poorly we've played and still been in games and with chances to win at the end and not being able to take advantage, like a lot of these games have been so winnable, and our record could be so much better right now. I definitely don't feel great about going to Atlanta tomorrow, winning there. I definitely don't feel great about either of the Hornets game. I think we probably split there, but like there isn't really a let up. They have a ton of home and away back to backs moving forward. I think they have 3 of them. Like this is a brutal schedule that they have, and I mean, they need to wake up. Frankly, it doesn't matter to the team. They're beating themselves at this point, and until there's a wake up moment and that changes, there's no games that I'm going to feel great about going into.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the edge of my seat for these next couple, and it's going to be interesting to see how they attack it and what they do actually change, because it's clear that they need something to change. And like you said, RB, maybe it's an Isaiah Joe night, maybe it's start Shake. Like Shake's looked good as an offensive creator. He looked good last night, but then you take that off the bench. So I don't know. I don't know where you go. It's tough, but again, I'm not getting paid a lot of money to make those decisions. Doc Rivers is the one making those decisions, but not that makes me feel any better, because that honestly makes me feel worse. But
I want to ask you guys as well. Like,
yeah,
we haven't even mentioned Danny Green. Like, this guy is absolutely killing us right now. And I know he came on last season, the second half, but like, do you guys even think Danny should be in the starting lineup? Maybe you pull him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
something to happen.
I will defend Danny Green a little bit here, and not that he's been excellent by any means. Like I'm not saying that, but like I do think provides more than like just the respect he garners offensively. Like I was big time start Danny over Matisse just because it's the spacing is ridiculously different, and he's still very good. The wheels are obviously falling off, but he's very good at that poke from behind steal and getting into there. So I'm still like what Danny brings to this team, and I mean he's not a difference maker by any means, but I'm happy he's in the rotation.
I think the biggest thing right now with Danny Green is just the fact that they're such a slow team. Like, and
Yeah,
he
he
is
looks extra
contributing
slow.
to them being very, very slow. And obviously, having a dominant center and a guy that you need to look towards every single possession with Embiid slows you down. But when you're number two or you're three, you're starting three, can't get up and down the floor at a high level the way that like most small forwards are getting up and down the floor at this point, it hinders you by a lot. And I think there's a place for him in this lineup. I think there's a place for him on the rotation. But that's been a place where I've really been looking for the Sixers to look to upgrade because he concerns me a lot just in terms of that he doesn't do anything offensively much other than shoot, which is important, but being able to move up and down the floor and offensively getting around and moving around and being able to tack off the dribble at all, is something that needs to be involved in your offense. And he's just a guy that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's more of a natural too. Well, he is, but
Yeah.
I've always thought the fit was awkward. But then again, with Seth Curry, like he's on and off, so you don't really want to take him off the starting unit. And then if you take Danny off the starting unit, it's just he doesn't have, like you said, he needs the guys around him that are going to get him open. Like he's not a guy you can throw in with the second unit who's going to make a difference unless he has the right guys around him. So yeah, I was interested in your guys' take on that, but um
Mhm.
yeah, we need to do something. We need to shake something up. Maybe even bench Tobias for a game, bring him off the bench. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe like when a team is going downhill, I'm all about that. Shake something up. Just I don't know. Just do something different. Get it to kind of flow again. And I feel like we need that right now.
Yeah, I agree. And this feels like kind of a Sixers slash Philadelphia thing, but I feel like what this team is missing is such like the simplest element of a basketball player. Like it's not a uncommon trait that like how do we not have guys that can just go out and score an isolation bucket or guys that want to create their own shot? Like that's all basketball is for the most part. Like it so blows my mind that we're constantly searching for things that like you can go off any NBA team's bench and find multiple of these guys, yet we can't stumble upon a single one. And like it's great having these all like high character, cool guys to have like Shake Milton, cool guy, like Furkan, cool guy, Matisse, awesome guy. But like if they're not like the basketball player that needs to be plugged in, it's simply like we have so many one-dimensional pieces that aren't all fitting together. And it's like there has to be more complete aspects than that.
Yeah. Again, like you said, Sean, this is not an isolated year for this. These
Yeah.
struggles have been like consistent over the last few, which is really frustrating and something that I feel like we're all kind of sick of dealing with. But I think at this point we've kind of like exhausted all of the recent emotions and like just dealing with it right now is the biggest struggle. But they do get back in action tomorrow. And then they do go forward for a little bit of this stretch. And then I just want to ask you, RB, before we let you go, what is your prediction the way the season plays out? Like right now, the way they look is bad. Obviously, we expect them to get a little bit better. But towards the end of this year, considering like by the trade deadline, do you see them as, a top 5 seed in the East or not?
I don't know if we are by the time the trade deadline rolls around, but my motto this whole time has been trust in Maury. Trust in Maury. I'm sticking with it. I think that you have to trade 2-5. You have to do it. If you don't, you're honestly playing yourself for a fool because one additional point, which obviously we didn't talk about, but I'm sorry that the guy's value is not going up at all. It's just going to continue to derail, continue to go down, and the more we wait now I'm on this train where you just have to get something for him. I'm going to trust him more to make the right move. I think we pick it up, pick it around, and get on our horse. I think we get healthier. But what I will say is we need more talent on this team. We need more talent. I think we can probably handle any team in the East if we are healthy and if we get another piece.
Yeah.
But it's a big if. There's a lot of changes that need to be made, and we need to get this drama off our back. I don't know how the season is going to play out because I don't know what's going to happen with this situation. And I feel like I've been saying that the entire offseason, but it's true. When you have a third of your salary cap sitting at home, there's not much you can really predict about the season. But teams do get hot. So hopefully we kind of pick it back up and hopefully we make something happen. We need to.
Yeah, and I guess that's been my saving grace all along too. Is to initially answer your question, I don't think they're a 1 to 5 seed in the East. I just simply don't think they're going to end up. I think they're going to drop enough games that it's not able to recover when it comes to that time. And the East is still competitive, so it's like they're going to be in that mix. But it is the saving grace is if the right deal is done, this team is right back in the top tier contenders. And if there's that right missing piece, that difference maker, this team still has Joel Embiid. And even though he hasn't been his best, like when he flips the switch and is locked in, there's not a lot of guys in this league better than him. And if we have that an additional piece, like I'm back in and bought in, baby. So I'm still hanging in hopeful.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to reel us back in for sure. It doesn't take much. A couple wins in a row will get me right back on the wagon. But that's gonna do it for today's episode, RB. We really appreciate you coming on. Just shout out your YouTube really quick because I know you do a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, you guys can find me Philly Take with RB. Thank you guys for having me on the show, man. Appreciate it a lot. Definitely got to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever want us on, obviously we would do that. So we appreciate it again, man. We thank all of you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.